everybody. Keith Engel here for TGI Sports Talk Sunday Stream of Consciousness. It's great to have you with us. We're here on Northeast Streaming Sports. We're here on Let's Talk Sports. We're sure on TGI Sports Talk. You can catch us Facebook, YouTube. We welcome everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. If you're not watching us live, I hope you catch us later on. Feel free to comment in the room today live, or feel free to comment as you watch this through the week. We welcome you guys. Lots to get into today. We'll talk about yesterday's Final Four games. I'm giving the U one last hurrah, if you will, as they did not play well and getting blown out. And the game wasn't even as close as 13 last night. But we'll talk about that game. We'll talk about the other game, which was an exciting game. We'll even jump into the women a little bit. We got a few things to talk about there. We'll talk about the start of the Major League Baseball season and some of the good things that are happening, some of the bad things that are happening. Lots of injuries across the league in the first few games. But we'll talk about the early results, very early results. We'll get into some NFL talk about what's been happening, what's the talk around the NFL annual meetings, where Aaron Judge is, Lamar Jackson talk, some draft talk maybe, whatever you guys want to talk about. And maybe we'll talk about the Knicks a little bit, as I've lost probably their most indispensable player in Gio Randle just before the playoffs. And we'll talk a little bit about maybe the playoff positions. We'll see how that goes. Real quick this morning before and we'll talk more about this in the football section perhaps, but we want to give our condolences to the family of John Brockington. Listen, I think a very underrated runner with the Packers back in the early to mid 70s. He went somewhere else. Where did John go after? Hang on one second. Where did John go after? No, he didn't leave. I thought he went somewhere after Green Bay, but I guess not. Had some great years, by the way. If I remember right, he was the first rookie ever to rush for 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons. His first 2 years. He was an All-Pro that first year, Pro Bowl player the first 3 years. As a lot of running backs did in those days, he kind of his career was really short. But again, he was a productive player and played a hard-nosed brand of football, and he'll be missed in the football community, let's say. So rest in peace, Chuck Foreman. Our condolences go to his family and friends, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about him as we get into the football section, which we can certainly do. What else? And by the way, just a quick reminder, check out the 101 with Keith Engel of our newest revived talk show, interview show. Last week's guest was Matt Robinson, former, and you can watch it now on several venues. Former great quarterback with the Georgia Bulldogs, played on some really good Bulldog teams, played with the Jets, beat out Richard Todd for a time, went to the Broncos, was their starting quarterback for a time, and he's very open about why his career didn't go further or be more productive. But it was we had a fun half hour. And speaking of NFL running backs, when we talked about John Brockington, I will be interviewing Chuck Foreman right after this show, hopefully. And we will have that up for you to watch come next Thursday. So, and then we'll have Irving Fryer, I think, the week after that. Good morning, Ken Gifford. They're up early on the mountain today. Probably a little chilly up there. I'm sure the weather's been kind of crazy the last couple of. I want to try to fix something here while I'm talking to you guys. I'm sure the weather's been a little bit crazy the last few nights or days. I mean, we had I don't know what night it was. Wednesday night, boy, that's even worse. We had a storm system come through here Wednesday where we had about 4 minutes of winds that had to be, I swear to God, 85 miles an hour. Oh, I went the wrong way. That's probably fine. That's good enough. And yesterday we were 74 degrees here in East Greenbush, and today it's going to be about 42. So welcome to spring in the Northeast. All right, guys, let's jump into it today. So we'll start with yesterday's Final Four matchups. We had obviously in the first game, San Diego State playing FAU. Both surprise teams to get there, although San Diego State has had a pretty good program and been knocking on the door for quite some time. And first under Steve Fisher, then under his longtime assistant, Brian Dutcher. He was with him at Michigan when he won, I want to say 89, or maybe it was 90. I can't remember when they went on the great run after Bill Frieder took the Arizona State job and thought he was going to coach Minnesota or Michigan in the NCAA, and they said, "No, you're not." And they promoted Steve Fisher, and he ran that team all the way to the championship, and then had some great years in Michigan. And when he left there, he went to San Diego State and really built that program up into a, if not a power, a very consistent winner and knocking on the door in the NCAA tournament all the time. They're the first Mountain West team ever to make the Final Four. Although some of the teams in the league did make the Final Four and actually win. UNLV's in that league, but not as part of the Mountain West. So first team ever to get to the Final Four. They played their typical game yesterday. One thing I'm impressed with, they were getting outplayed all day. FAU played very well. Didn't rebound on the defensive end of the court, though. And early on, San Diego State was dominating even the offensive boards, but not putting them back in. This game was nearly, except they fell further behind. I think they were behind by 14 at one point. Never was ahead in the second half until the final shot, and probably hadn't been ahead at all in the game since the middle of the first half. But it was kind of a carbon copy of the game against Creighton. Didn't fall as far behind, but they struggled and they hung with. This team is resilient, man. They don't give up. And maybe FAU might have, I don't know, their end of games strategy with the ball may have been a little iffy, but you can't take anything away from these teams. Listen, I saw some posts. Let me get to some good mornings here real quick. San Diego State was a great game, and we'll talk more about that. Whiplash weather for sure. Jesus, God. The wind's blowing so hard here, I can feel the draft on me. Good morning, Rick. For all of any of this group that has not seen Keith interview with a wide variety of guests, he has a way of pulling out great stories and memories. It's like watching two guys sitting at a kitchen table sharing tales. Well, I appreciate that, Rick. It's kind of what I like to do, right? I have an outline of how I want the interview to go, but a lot of times it goes down avenues I didn't even expect it to go, and we just run with it. So that'll probably happen today with Chuck Foreman again. And I appreciate your kind words. You always do that. 25 on the mountain for Rick. Tanner D, good morning. Great to have you with us. Keith, neither one of us got our wish yesterday. I know, Tough game for Miami. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Mad New Yorker, offensive boards in the second half was key for the SS. It was, and they also weren't even making them early in the first half. They started to convert. And again, it was very similar to the Creighton game in that regard. Make layups and FAU wins by 10. Whatever. I mean, listen, the defense, and San Diego State's a really good defensive team. They didn't play good defense in the first half. They gave up 40 points. They played much better defense. And defense leads to missed layups, right? If you can test every play, you'll cause missed shots. It's just logic. I saw posts. Here's one thing that really ticked me off yesterday. And I'll see maybe this will say. Let's see what Rick says here before I go into what I said. I was going to say, I disagree with your take on Mac and Jack. Florida lost the game giving up 8 offensive rebounds in 3 minutes. Rebounding is a mindset and about desire and heart. I don't know that I said anything else. Maybe I was wrong. I was talking about the offensive rebounds that, even defensive rebounds. I was concentrating on offensive rebounds for San Diego State. They definitely outplayed FAU. And if I said that backwards, I apologize. But maybe there's something else. And again, it's okay if you disagree with me. But I said they wanted the rebounds more. I didn't say it out loud, but what I was implying was they did want the rebounds more. It's a great offensive rebounding team. We saw it against Creighton. And I have this problem, and I'm not you, Rick, but as after the game last night, in between games, because I don't know why we have to have a concert in between games, and I have to start the Miami game at 9:15 and not 8:45. But anyway, I'm going through some message boards, and I saw lots and lots of posts saying San Diego State didn't deserve to win this game. And I think that is so wrong. San Diego State deserved to win this game because they wanted to win it. And I'm not going to tell you FAU, and maybe that's what you're talking about, Rick. I'm not sure, because I did say I don't think FAU choked. I don't think they, choked this game away. Because anytime a team loses a big lead or looks like they're throwing the game away or choking, there are things happening that are causing that choke to happen on the other end of other end of the equation. Most times, I'm not saying teams don't ever, choke it up, but listen, the approach and the adjustments a team makes. Brian Dutcher is a really, really good coach. In fact, I said this. He left for a year. I think before he got this job. Steve Fisher's last year, I think he may have left. But Steve Fisher's last few years there, he was basically a CEO. The coaches, Brian Dutcher included, were doing most of the game planning. And, he was there as a CEO type coach. And they kept his staff, brought Brian Dutcher back, and kept the rest of his staff intact, which made a big difference in his team being able to continue its success. So, again, Rick, I'm not sure if we're on the same side here or not. You can certainly clarify further if you'd like. We'll continue that conversation. Miami could not buy a championship. I thought, listen, first of all, Carlos, I know you love to throw this out here because of my take against the NIL. I'm not happy with anything, and I'm not going to spend the morning not talking about these games in the final and all the other stuff I have to talk about with Major League Baseball and the NFL and talk about the NIL again. We can talk about the NIL Wednesday night all you want. And I'm still against it. But don't tell me that, Miami's the only team out here doing this stuff, right? You're all for the NILs anyway. So I see the LOL. So I had to hold my nose with this team a little bit because they did pay for oh God, what's the kid's name's escaping me here? Nigel Pack to come in from Kansas State, and then Wong was holding them hostage. Which, listen, I went into all this stuff before the season, and I ripped Wong and the NIL process for him being able to use the portal to hold a team hostage. But look at whatever. They're playing the game that everybody else is playing, and I can hate it, and I'll still watch the sport. Well, again, I'm not saying FAU didn't get after it the way San Diego State did, but this wasn't just FAU. Watch all of San Diego State's games throughout this tournament, and they played the second half the same exact way almost every time. They are tenacious on the boards, and them wanting it more and always getting it plays into breaking a team down like FAU, where maybe they lose that will to go after the ball or whatnot. But again, please, I've seen this, and I don't want to do this here. I really hope your guys' comments don't say FAU lost the game and San Diego State didn't win it. San Diego State played a great game. Their strategy through these last couple of games is at the end of games when they're behind has been extraordinary. Patient. They don't panic. And I hit a big shot. That shot, Brian Dutcher said he didn't call a timeout there with 6 seconds or 7 seconds, whatever it was left on the clock when they got the rebound because he was out of plays. But I think he just wanted his kid to go down there and make something happen. He wanted to go to the basket, as you saw, right? I mean, you watch the play, and he's driving to the basket, Butler is, and then there's nothing there. And when he starts coming out, I'm thinking he's not getting the shot off. That was a tremendously athletic play. And by the way, only starter in double digits for San Diego State was Bradley at 21 points. So the starters struggled here. The bench played really well. They contributed 27 points here to 15 for Florida Atlantic. So that plays a part in this too. Carlos talks about, and a lot of these teams don't go that deep, right? And they only played 9 guys. But Ladie had 12 points in 15 minutes. We can't take away. We do this a lot. And I'm sure I'm guilty of it from time to time. You know, you can't say a team just pisses away a game without crediting the other team for helping that happen. So to say San Diego State didn't win, and I'm not saying you guys are, and I hope we're not, but if that's your opinion, you're certainly welcome to it, that Florida Atlantic lost it and San Diego State didn't win it. Steak and eggs and home fries for Kenny up on the mountain today. Matthew, welcome to the show. Not sure if Matthew's been with us before, but if you have been, welcome back. And if you haven't been, welcome. And please, Matthew, go like and follow TGI Sports Talk if you could, and share it with your friends. We talk about everything. Right now, we're at NCAA basketball. We're getting into baseball. We're getting into, I'm trying to see what's on your shirt there. Can't see what team. Is that a Rutgers hat? I don't know. Is that a Rutgers hat? I don't know. Matthew's right. UConn probably will win the whole thing. They're playing great basketball. This is 13 points might be the least they've won by the entire tournament. And by the way, switching gears to that game a little bit, and we can go back and forth between these two games if we have to. This game wasn't as close as the score. UConn had pushed this game into the 20s. Miami fought bravely like they did when they came back against Texas. But this UConn team is on a roll. Since the first half of the game here in Albany against UConn, the first round where they trailed, this team has been just on fire. And they did this without Andre Jackson. And I'll, shameless plug for the local boy here who went to, I probably can't say that, the local guy who went to Albany Academy and grew up in Amsterdam, New York, where a lot of my viewers are from. They did it without him in the first half, much of the game. He ended up playing 22 minutes, getting 6 points, 4 assists. And he's a key member of this team because he does everything. If I were to look at his overall stats, I think he averages 7+, nearly 8 points, nearly 8 rebounds, nearly 8 assists a game. The guy does everything. He's a point forward, and he's a very important cog on his team. And they played very well without him. And this team goes a little bit. Well, shouldn't they go deep? Some of the guys they played yesterday played just 1 minute, I think, to get them in the game. But Sanago is just tremendous. You watch him hit those 2 or 3 3-pointers near the beginning of the game. They look like set shots. I don't even think he was taking a jump shot. It felt like he was just catching a ball and shooting it. The kid's good. And they got some Hawkins played well, despite the fact that he was sick most of the day by all accounts. Sanago was 9 of 11, played great. I was trying to think of the other guy Klinga is just huge. Man, 6 rebounds. How many blocks did he have? He only had 1 block, but he was changing shots right and left, so he played very well. What we got here? FAU started running out of gas. Everybody's running out of gas at the end of these games, but again, that's where will comes in, by the way, Carlos. We talk about this a lot. We talk about leadership and having that inner fortitude. And I think a lot of our viewing audience, I'm pretty sure will agree with me that you get to end of games, a lot of teams are out of gas. And that becomes when the team that wants it more, kind of to Rick and Kenny's point about FAU maybe not hitting the boards the way they did early in the game, San Diego State wanted it more. And you get through that empty gas tank, and your will to win carries you forward. They didn't have the heart watching on free throws and didn't allow guys back out. Again, what are you talking about? Oh, we're talking about Miami now? Wong. I think it's unfair to say he'll be in jail shortly. I mean, there's zero reason. I'm not happy with the way the kid carried himself in the offseason, again, holding Miami hostage, but unless I'm missing something, there's nothing in the kid's background to assume he'll be in jail. I think that might be an unfair take here. I don't think he's a bad kid. He plays hard. He didn't make enough shots, 4 for 10 from the field. He and Pack and Miller, I want to say, at one point in this game were like 2 for 20. But nobody shot well on this team. You know, they shot 32% from the field. You're not winning games like that. And by the way, again, horrible stats. But you can't dismiss the fact that again, I know you were watching the game, Kentucky plays smothering defense. They contest every shot, whether you're going to the rim. You know, when we're talking about missed layups, we're not talking about guys just getting to the rim by themselves. You contest a layup, you got a pretty good better chance of missing that layup than you do if you're just going up by yourself. That's just common sense. And this is a team that's not deep. You know, the bench did contribute 17 points, but they only, they got 22 minutes from Joseph off the bench and 11 from Beverly. Everything else was like 1 minute. 7 from Walker. But everybody, Miller, who was perfect the other night, was 4 for 10 from the field. They just didn't, again, I don't think it was hard. They played badly. And UConn's a better team. I wasn't watching lack of heart on this team, Kenny. They fell way behind early on, fought back to tie the game, halfway through the first half or whatever. They fell behind by 20, and they cut it to 10 at one point. They lost to 13 in a game they very easily could have lost by 25. I don't think this team had lack of heart. Watch Jim Larrañaga a coach for a lot of years, and his teams have heart, in my mind, in general. I just don't think they just played a better team. Sometimes that's what happens. You play a better team. Tournament is emotionally and physically draining, especially when you get to this point. The high, and that's what's fun about the tournament. It's a lot of fun. And you see the extremes of the excitement from the San Diego State players when the basket's made with no time left to go ahead by 1. First time in the second half they led, to the dejection on FAU's part. Somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose. And we had a little debate, Rick. I think you probably saw it. You probably saw it anyway, on Mac and Jack and Jim show about whether it was better to lose the way San Diego or Florida Atlantic lost, or the way Miami lost, to get blown out or lose a heartbreaker. And we have a wide variety of opinions. Mine will always be, this isn't just a game. This is the Final Four for two teams that don't have a long history of getting there. Neither one of them have ever been there, the teams that lost. And to me, it doesn't matter how you lose at that point. You've lost, a game at a very crucial moment and someplace you fought hard to get to. Alex Simpson, good morning. Great to have you with us this morning. Matthew, yep, it is good to have you with us. As I said, I hope you will like and follow the show and share it with your friend. Proud Rutgers alum. Awesome. Rutgers, listen, and I'll throw this out there. It's not really on topic here this morning, obviously, but this is the Stream of Consciousness show. Rutgers has had a pretty good basketball team for the last, 5 years. Maybe it's through COVID. Maybe it's 3 or 4 years, whatever. And haven't been able to get it out of the hump. Playing in the Big Ten is very tough for them. If they were playing in the East, if they were still in the Big East, let's say, I don't know, maybe they'd be better off because they wouldn't have the travel and whatnot. It's a good team. It's a well-coached team. They just can't seem to get over the hump. Their best year was they've had in decades. And by the way, I can tell you're much younger than I am, Matthew, but hopefully as a Rutgers alum, you know their history a little bit. And you know that Tom Young took that 1976 team with Phil Sellers. They were undefeated going to the Final Four. Great season they had in 76. Miami showed heart in coming back and closing the gap. No quit. May have run out. I agree. They probably ran out of gas. Again, they were playing a very, very short rotation. really 6 guys. Beverly did get 11 minutes, the 7th guy, but other than that, it was token. I think that, and 4 of them were probably guys that Lauren Gardner put in at the end of the game. So, yeah, I do think that. I don't think it was Hart. I do think they ran out of gas. But again, at the end, I do say at the end of the game, Hart can carry you. So to that point, once you're out of gas, you got to run on something. And physically, we're talking about Sangano. That guy's a tremendous player. He does physically remind me of Willis a little bit. That got big upper body. He moves great in the paint. He can shoot. I don't know if Willis had his range. I mean, Willis had a pretty good mid-range jump shot that he was deadly on, and there was no three-point shot then, but maybe he would have been fine. But this kid so effortlessly put up these three-pointers. Italy Jet, Duval. What's that, buddy? Oh, God. Oh, yeah, Boston. I got you now. We'll get to baseball in just a few minutes. Italy Jet, one of my again new viewers. Welcome to the show this morning. Best tournaments in Walton, going 22 for 23 in the UCLA win. That was against Memphis State. At the time, they were still Memphis State. I think Swin Nader was on that team too, so they had a big center, coached by Gene Bartow, who later coached UCLA. I remember a lot about those teams, Kenny. That was a good tournament. I don't know if it was the best tournament. That was the best performance in a tournament by far. I mean, the best tournament. Listen, NC State, when they knocked off UCLA, probably the following year, or maybe 2 years later, I can't remember now. I think it would have been the next year when NC State knocked off UCLA in the Final Four, and then went on to play Marquette in the final. That was a great tournament as well. Rutgers does need a few players, but again, it's a good team. They've been very competitive in a very competitive Big Ten, since they've moved there. Unlike the football team, which should not be playing in the Big Ten. That's unfortunate. The football team's got to consider. I don't know that the football team can move to someplace like the AAC. Maybe the program should think about going to the AAC. Rutgers has a very good baseball team the last few years. Yes, they do. St. John's, Rutgers, there's been some good teams out of the East here historically. Northeast, I should say. I did not catch any of the NIT. Did they? I'm assuming they do we even have it here? I'll probably never find it because they don't have a. I didn't find. Again, it's too hard. The NIT. If I got nothing else to chat about, we chat about the NIT. But all about handling the big moments. Some teams can. That's a great point, Alec. I mean, again, the way you handle the big moments, and whether it's baseball, football, basketball, some guys can just, the game slows down for them, right? And in some places, it just speeds up. And I think that kid, what was his name again? Butler, from San Diego State, has that presence in the big moment. You saw, because what he wanted to do was take it away from him. But he had a presence of mind. He had a presence of the time, and he was able to kind of regroup and he got a good shot off. It wasn't like he was just throwing up a Hail Mary. He got a good shot off and handled it perfectly. I did. Poor kid. I don't know what was going on with the sneakers. I guess they're having trouble with the floor or whatnot, but I don't know what the deal was. Didn't one of them run right out of their shoe? I think it was Nigel Pack, wasn't it? Didn't he run right out of his shoe at one point? Rick. So that kid's got a workout yesterday, and he's probably sleeping in this morning. So, we got that. So keep those comments coming. So we're going to have San Diego State against, I should have changed my banner here, huh? Because I've been talking about this for about 20 minutes now. We're going to have San Diego State against UConn. does San Diego State have any chance off what we've seen to be a UConn team that's just been blowing people away? I think it's going to be very tough. I'm not going to count them out because they've played well against some really good teams. I mean, they got a few breaks along the way in this bracket with Purdue getting knocked out in the first round, but whatever. It just takes nothing away from this team, this coaching staff. They've fallen behind in games. You saw them behind by 14 yesterday. You saw them behind close to double digits against Creighton, a really good Creighton team, by the way. But none of these teams are as good as UConn. But don't forget, and UConn's on a roll. UConn finished 4th in the Big East. So you people want to rip the Big East, and I've said they're not as good as they were back in the heyday of the Big East. But don't forget, UConn finished 4th in this conference. And here they are. And this was a team, though, that was number 2 in the country, a couple of months ago. Went on a really bad tail street spin and got hot again at the right time. Teams need to peak at the right time. That's what's hard in sports, right? Long seasons. Basketball's a long season, even college basketball. Pro basketball, they're heading towards the playoffs now. Some teams are playing better and again, trending upwards. It happens in baseball every year. Some teams win in 100 games, but, loses 8 out of their last 10 going into the playoffs, and they get whacked. Does San Diego State have a chance? They got a chance because they've gotten this far. But they can't fall behind by 14. They can't fall behind by double digits. UConn's not going to give them as many second chances. They're big. Miami matches up very well with some of that inside game that San Diego State tries to play with Sangano, with what's the other kid's name? Karabon and Klingon. These guys all play big. They are big, and they play big. I mean, this team had 13 offensive rebounds themselves the other night. 28 rebounds altogether. I don't know that they played their best game. Remember, they played nearly half the game without Andre Jackson, too. Andre Jackson's a big part of this team. He's the guy who kind of makes things go. They played a big part of the game without him. And hopefully he won't get in foul trouble on Monday night. But if he does, if Connecticut lets this team stick around, then they'll have a chance to win, obviously. But there's every chance Connecticut could win this game by 20. And this is the kind of tournament where, you keep waiting for that letdown game where it's built up and we're excited about it. And it almost feels like it's coming Monday. And I'm not telling you right now, I think Connecticut will win. Yes. I do want to say the San Diego Chance has a chance. They got to stay close, though. They cannot fall behind like they have against a lot of other teams in this tournament. Rick, oops, I missed something here. I would say no, maybe a puncher's chance. Yeah, again, a puncher's chance, yes. Connecticut's going to be they could be a double-digit favorite. I don't know. Do we have a line on that game yet? Does anybody know? Let me check DraftKings real quick. I got a message from Chuck Foreman. I'll reach back out to him in a little bit. Let's see if we have a line yet on this game. I'm sure we do. What do you guys think it is? Maybe I can't. Oh, there we go. NCAA basketball. I don't need all these ads. Just get me where I want to go. San Diego State, UConn, 7.5 right now. Money line, $350. Bet $350 you can win $100. UConn's that's a pretty good favorite for the final game. Boy, from Astro Stella base, just because of the new rules. We'll get up to that too. I got some conversations about the new rules and some of the things that have gone wrong, including a bad call against the Mets in Game 1. That's why baseball is so hard at so many games. Agreed. We're talking about, I think, playing so many games and having to be trending up as you hit the playoffs. Tell Paul, Rick's scheduling his breakfast reservation. So anyway, I think this team can win. Real quick before we go to basketball or to baseball, we'll get Drew involved here. And I got to push our preview show too, because I'll be resharing it soon. On the women's side, you had again, we talked about the fact that the women always seems like the chalk is there at the Final Four or right through the tournament. We don't have as many upsets. You don't see 12s and 15s winning games like you do on the men's side. So you saw number 1 Virginia Tech lose to number 3 LSU. And number 3 LSU, by the way, is 33-2 in a very good SEC. So LSU goes on. They were led by Reese's 24 points and 12 rebounds and 3 steals. And Iowa and the tremendous Clark, what's her first name? The heck is her first name? I want to say Caitlin Clark. What a freaking game by her the other day. She might be the most exciting player in either tournament. 41 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, 15 for 31 from the field, only 5 of 17 from 3, but we'll give her a break. She led this team all by herself. She scored 41 of their 77 points. They beat the number 1 team in the country. South Carolina hadn't lost a game. Now, and South Carolina, as we talked about earlier today, I mean, their guards did not shoot well. They've got a really good inside game. Some big girls playing, the center and forward positions, but their guards didn't play well. I mean, Cook did score 24 points, but only shot 11 of 21, which I guess isn't terrible. 0 for 3 from 3 points. The team was 4 for 20 from the 3-point line. That's the difference in the game right there. 7, Iowa made 7. Plus 9 for 13 from the field goal, the free throw line. Iowa's perfect. And again, we've talked a lot about this. Now watching, and I've taken on a new appreciation since I became aware of Caitlin Clark. And watched a lot. I watched a lot of video of her last, 3 or 4 days, and she is a great player. And there's probably some men's teams she could play on. Now, I will still stand by my argument that, she couldn't play on the top level of the NCAA, but could she play on some teams? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you have to stand to eat, apparently, Rick. You have a standing reservation, so they're booked up with all the seating. You have to stand. Keith I lost my standing reservation when I didn't badmouth women. Thank you for the LOL, by the way. I didn't badmouth women. The women's game has improved so much in the last decade. And you watched them play. I remember days when they were making 3-pointers and it looked like they were heaving it from half court. These guys play just like the men. They play, but they don't have the same. Oh, God, I'm going to get myself in trouble. The best don't have the same talent level or athletic ability as the best men. That's all I'm saying. I'm confident Caitlin Clark could go play in one of these mid-major programs. She could probably go start for. Maybe she could start for Cal. They won 3 games last year. Maybe not start. Maybe come off the bench. But it's a stretch to say these teams could beat top-notch men's teams. That's all I'm saying. So anyway, you end up with LSU against Iowa. Who's not rooting for Iowa? And Caitlin Clark tomorrow night. Or tonight. Sorry, today at 3:30. At least again, I don't have to stay up till midnight to watch the game. Although I might be out until about 4th. I might miss part of that game. I'd like to see it. Got to watch some baseball today, too. But listen, and I think the viewership was probably pretty good for this. They do a smart thing now. It used to be different the way they set this up, but they play the Final Four the night before the men's play their Final Four, Friday. They play the final on Sunday before the men play their final. I know, Kenny, and Kenny, you may have something to it. I don't know how the logistics would work. But I think the NCAA, and again, it probably won't happen because of money, because having two different venues obviously doubles the revenue. Well, maybe doesn't quite double it, but you know what I'm talking about. If you played it in one venue, then another city doesn't profit from having it, like the women there in one place and the men in another. But I think it would be kind of exciting. You could still play the two Final Fours. Maybe you could play them. I mean, if the men are going to play till 6 o'clock at night, you can play the women at noon and 2:30. No, not noon, 2:30. Noon and 3:15. And the men play at 6:09 and 9 o'clock. You could play all four games. And then play the two finals on Monday night. You could play at 6:30 and 9 o'clock. I think there's something to that, Kenny. I've thought a lot about that since you brought it up. I think it would be a lot of fun. So anyway, you're going to have the best player in women's college basketball who's really hit the national scene here in the last couple of weeks. As she's carried this Iowa team, who had 6 losses in the regular season, by the way. They'll play LSU 33-2, and it'll be very interesting to watch this game and watch the LSU coach's wardrobe, because she likes to kind of keep it light. So I think it'll be interesting. And if we don't have any comments further on that, we'll move on to Major League Baseball, because I know we had a couple of comments already. I mean, the big story. What do you got here, Drew? Drew already had his. Drew, that's funny. So Drew obviously had this comment ready to go, because as soon as I said MLB, he posts this. This is where I was going to start. Actually, the biggest story for me the first 3 days now of the season is the injuries. And it shouldn't be as expected. I love the people, again, when the WBC was going on and Edwin Diaz got hurt and Altuve got hurt and this guy got hurt and everybody blamed the WBC. Look at the guys who are going down here in the first couple of games. What are they doing? What are they actually doing in spring training to get ready to play baseball? Robbie Ray's out. Verlander's out. Max Fried gets hurt in his first start. Brandon Lowe, Contreras, Robert Suarez, Bard. More and more. I had this pulled up. I'll go team by team here. Where'd I have this? I pulled up the injury list here somewhere. Bear with me a second. Maybe I got rid of it. Crap. Coaches. Oh, maybe I moved it over here. I did. All right. I'm going to look at guys, key guys that have gotten hurt or gone on to DL recently. If I miss somebody, you can point them out, and if they went out sooner, you can tell me. These guys got hurt recently. Either the end of spring training, they put them on the IL, or they did it just since we started the season. Max Fried. This is the Braves, obviously. Max Fried. Iglesias. Kyle Wright. All key parts of that pitching staff. Baltimore, James McCann. Boston. Sorry, Italy. I can't find any of these guys. Trevor Story, but he was hurt. We knew he was going to be out. He's not a recent injury. Garrett Whitlock gets hurt. I can't say James Paxton is a surprise that he's hurt. The Cubs, Suzuki, Kyle Hendricks. All these guys got... Liam Hendricks we know about with the White Sox. That's a health issue. Cincinnati, it's going to be hard to find somebody that matters. Joey Votto, but he was hurt during spring training. Cleveland, nothing really major there. Not going to. Daniel Bard, we talked about with Colorado. Detroit, there's nobody key enough to worry about. Ryan Presley gets hurt. We missed him, I think, Drew. Ryan Presley gets hurt. Well, he's day-to-day, I think. Hey, I shouldn't include him. Michael Brantley got hurt in spring training. Lance McCullers, his is kind of a carryover, so we shouldn't count him. Altuve, we know, got hurt in the WBC. We'll skip Kansas City. The Angels, Anthony Rendon got hurt, but he's got some other issues as he had a run-in with a fan, so we're going to see what happens there. And he says he can't comment. We'll talk a little bit about that situation maybe as we go forward. So no other real injuries there. The Dodgers, Muncy's banged up, but he's okay. We know Lux went out during spring training for the season. Tony Gonsolin's still out, probably through the month of April. Daniel Hudson, same thing. Buehler was hurt. Buehler. Milwaukee. Urias gets hurt yesterday. They're starting third baseman. He's out until at least May 27th with a hamstring injury. When, again, what are these guys doing to get ready for the season? Polanco was hurt during the season for the Twins or the exhibition season, whatever. We know about Diaz. Justin Verlander for the Mets. Jose Quintana went out during spring training. Yankees. Trevino's still out, hurt during spring training. Montas, he was hurt when they got him. Tommy Kahnle gets hurt during spring training. Luis Severino hurt during spring training. Harrison Bader gets hurt. Carlos Rendon gets hurt, all during spring training. Nothing that really matters on Oakland. Oakland doesn't have any players to even worry about. Maybe they are important players. Who the hell would know? Pittsburgh, same situation. San Diego, Suarez. Musgrove got hurt near the end of spring training. He should be back in a week or so. Pomeranz, who was a decent pitcher out of the bullpen for this team. San Francisco, Mitch Haniger. An oblique. I love seeing the oblique injuries. Joey Bart. That's probably the major things there. Robbie Ray, you mentioned, Drew. Taylor Trammell. I like Taylor Trammell. What happened to Taylor Trammell? One of the best prospects in baseball at one point in my mind. Nuke Bar's just banged up for Wilson Contreras. Should be okay. These are just probables. That's for, Adam Wainwright. Adam Wainwright got banged up. That was probably during the WBC. But again, far more injuries there, or less injuries there than we saw. And I know there's less players there, so I can do the simple math. Tampa Bay, Tyler Glasnow's a carryover injury. I'll get to your comments in a second, guys. I'm just about through this. I want to see who else might have gone down that I wasn't catching. Jin Rio out for the Toronto is a big loss for them, but that's a previous injury as well. And I don't know whether we can really count anybody hurt on Washington as huge, other than guys like Steven Strasburg who are out, for we already knew they were going to be out. Alex still looking for Drew. Maybe you could help Alex. He's one of our newer viewers the last few weeks as well. He was on my MLB episode the other day, and we talked about the fact that he's out west, can't come up, but he's just kind of moving into baseball, and he's looking for a team. And I told him if he wants to get on somebody and be at the ground floor of something that will be, you won't be a bandwagon jumper, let's say. I would say get on the Arizona Diamondbacks bandwagon this year, and then next year when they're contending, you can tell all your friends I was there when they were terrible. Or a team that isn't quite there yet, but really good, is the Seattle Mariners. Stay away from those teams in California. Rick, back to, and we can go back here a little bit because this is a stream of consciousness. Rick says the guards in both men's and women's game cannot feed the post where the big men needs the ball. UConn is about the best. I agree with that 100%. And part of the reason college basketball has changed is the big men aren't emphasized the way that they were. They don't, it's a drive and get it out to the 3-point line game a lot of times. Not quite like the NBA. There still is some post play, but you're right. And a lot of times they're inexperienced guards that can't do this. And UConn does do it very well. And one of the reasons is, again, I'm not just pumping the kid up because I'm not a bandwagon jumper. There's so many guys I bet you there's more people who claim to know Andre Jackson in Amsterdam than have ever, he's ever even come across. but he's really well, and he plays a point forward basically position, which you don't see a lot anymore. There was a time back in the 80s that position became very big with a Rodney McRae type player out of Louisville. He was a point forward. And I like he can just play. That's why you can't label these guys anymore, right? Because he plays guard. He can play shooting guard. He can play point guard. He can play small forward. He can mix it up inside and get rebounds. Injuries are just bad luck in most cases. I don't necessarily agree, Kenny. Again, when the pitchers that we're talking about, you know why pitchers get hurt? Because they don't pitch. Nolan Ryan was trying to change this, 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, probably a little longer. When he was running the Texas Ranger organization, he mandated in the minor leagues that the kids pitch. There weren't going to be 80 and 90 pitch limits for these kids. They were going to pitch and strengthen their arms. Now, I know these aren't all arm injuries. Some of it's luck. I don't disagree with that. But with the number of pitchers that we see getting hurt year after year because their arms aren't strong. And then a manager gets chastised for leaving a guy in and he gets his arm hurt because he threw 102 pitches or 110 pitches. Come on. You pay these guys $1 gazillion, then you don't let them pitch the most important part of the games, and you train the kids that when they reach a certain point in the game, they're looking in the dugout for somebody to come and get them. And they get hurt because they don't pitch. Enough. I didn't say anybody wanted to get hurt, unless you're Rodgers. Kenny gets his Aaron Rodgers shot in early. Oh, yeah, Drew, I wanted to say, since we moved to this, thank you for bringing that up, Rick. We still had a little trouble with the audio, not as much. I was able, when it did start to crackle, and Ellen did help get his headset together. And we still had some issues when we tested it, but for whatever reason, I was able to kind of go in and check the settings and just make a quick change and it would fix it. Nothing that I changed fix it, just the mere fact that we were changing something would get rid of the crackle. So it worked well, and we did have a lot of fun. And guys, go to TGI Sports Talk, and I'm going to repost it later so it'll move to the top of the feed. But if you scroll down through the videos, you'll see our Major League preview for 2023, which went a little bit longer than we normally do, and it's really starting to pick up. So I thank all the baseball groups that allowed me to share it, and we'll be sharing it some more. And watch the show because it's very, very informative. And Drew does a great job diving in. The surprises. This is one thing I love, too, when I get to baseball. So I've got my notes here, but Drew's already, goes to my next topic without me. Maybe not the next one, but he pulls up my topics before I have to. So again, 2 games in, are we getting excited about, teams that are 2-0? No. Texas, I'm sure Alan's not with us today. I don't know what's going on with Alan. Alan had a little bit of a cryptic post, and whatever's going on, Alan, when you see this, if you are here, our thoughts are with you, and if you need prayers, you have them. So whatever's going on with you, I hope everything's okay. But if Alan were here, I'm sure he'd be saying, see, I told you so. And while we're on the Rangers, by the way, this team is not going to go. I don't think they're going 162-0. I'm pretty sure. I think neither the Twins, neither the Rays, neither the Braves, because that would be some kind of record. Rangers have a lot of problems. I mean, I guess, DeGrom pitched badly the other day, but if you want to look at the upside, he didn't get hurt. It's funny because somebody had come across a post I put up because there was an article when DeGrom first signed with the Rangers, and it was talking about how the Mets were smart not to trade him or not to sign him, especially for the years and the money that they got. And I shared it, and with the comment, "There's always one dumb owner," which I tell you guys all the time. There's always a dumb owner. Well, somebody reposted that after DeGrom pitched Thursday. And guys are saying, it's one start. What's the matter with you? And ripping me up and down. I'm like, guys, I posted this 6 months ago when he signed a contract. It had nothing to do with his performance today. And I stand by my comments that it's a bad signing for the Rangers, who are not Jacob deGrom's 15 starts away from contending. As far as Colorado, look at, they're not staying there. And it's too early. Next week when we talk, right? If you got some teams that haven't won yet, or you got teams that are undefeated, well, we really got something to talk about there, right? I mean, is there anybody that's really? I mean, Dansby Swanson's gotten off to a great start with the Cubs, hitting 750 early on. I don't think that'll continue, will it? It's hard to even look at these things, right? I want to look at least home runs. At least are interesting to chat about a little bit. Hold on. How come I can't see RBIs? Trace Thompson, a great game last night. He's got 8 RBIs already. That's impressive. CJ Cron with Colorado with 7. We talked a little bit about him the other day. Adam Duvall, who Edley was talking about as a Red Sox fan, has got 6 already. These are nice starts. Trace Thompson with 3 home runs for the Dodgers. CJ Cron already with 3 for Colorado. I'm assuming they're playing home without looking at the scoreboard again. Duvall with 2. Matt Wilson with 2. Aaron Judge only with 2. Aaron Judge only with how many? 1? Are we going to get excited about that? Listen, one thing about Aaron Judge, let's not get too worried. If Aaron Judge, by the way, hits 240, let's just say he hits 45 home runs, drives in 110 runs, hits 300, 298, whatever, scores 100 runs. Please don't tell me he had such a bad year. Ugh. I see so many people posting again in the groups. Aaron Judge will be a disappointment this year. There's no way he matches last year's numbers. Well, that can't be the bar, guys. That's just ridiculously out of the realm of possibility. I shouldn't say that. To expect him to match that, it's not out of the realm of possibility he could do it. And they don't need him to do it. You know what I like about Aaron Judge right now? Is that he's taken Volpe under his wing and instructing him a little bit. We talked about it on the Mac and Jack show. Garrett Cole's done the same thing with Clark Schmidt, who struggled a bit yesterday, but I like Clark Schmidt a lot. And I think Clark Schmidt's going to do fine in this league. Oh, God, I gotta check something here quick, guys, because I got Chuck Foreman, as I said. Let me just respond here. It's always fun to watch me type, probably, right? I want to let him know that I'm not avoiding him. So anyway, I like to see that. Yankees, look at, not a great game yesterday, but that's okay. This team will be fine. We got to make some moves. I did see some talk, some stories yesterday about moving Gleyber Torres for, it might be pitching. We didn't think we'd need pitching, but I shouldn't say. I didn't think we would need pitching. A lot of people thought they wouldn't with the signing of Rondon and, Severino's renewed health. Well, everybody's hurt now. So pitching might be something you need to trade for. But third base, left field, Aaron Hicks and Donaldson got to go. Phillies 0-2. This is a good story, by the way. So the flip side of Texas is the Phillies, and in Drew and I's comments the other day, I had picked the Phillies not to make the playoffs and struggle, around the 500 mark, maybe a little above it, because I'm not happy with the pitchers after the 2 that got hammered here. So bad start for the Phillies. So, I mean, again, 2 games, we aren't going to get too excited, but you can't be excited as a Philly fan giving up 27 runs in 2 games to the Rangers, by the way, who had one of the worst offenses in baseball last year. They got some good players, don't get me wrong, but they were just atrocious on base percentage wise and some other things too. So, this is a sticking point for me, and I haven't talked a lot about it since I did when it first came out, but I haven't recently, and I was reminded about it the other day. Stupid scheduling, playing fewer division foes and more opening day. It's not so much the opening day series. I don't like that either, Drew. But playing more games against teams outside your division, more interleague games, is just ridiculous. Don't have divisions if that's what you're going to do. Go back to the days where there was an American League. Of course, there was only 10 teams or whatever. And Drew pointed out, I said 32 teams on my Major League Baseball update the other day, just because it wasn't coming to my head, and I knew when I said it was probably wrong. I do know there are 30 teams in baseball. But if you're going to do this, then just play one big league. American League 15, National League 15, and be done with it. Because why? And then the top 6 teams can get it. Top 6 teams can get it. There you go. Done. Because you're de-emphasizing the importance of divisional play. It's ridiculous to have divisions and not play more games in your division than you do against the rest of baseball. Thank you, Rob Manfred. More ridiculous nonsense. We get ridiculous rules. We get ridiculous scheduling. You think Yankee fans care about playing the Giants at all? Unless it's in the World Series? I was never a fan of interleague play to begin with. I wasn't a fan of... I got to change my banner, don't I? Let me do that before I forget here. I wasn't a fan of the DH when it started, because I'm like Bob Costas on freaking steroids, man. Oh, God. Can baseball survive, Rob Manfred? I said this now for years, and it gets worse every year. Stupid isn't even the word for it. True. Yankees won opening day. Judge hits a homer. Listen, the Yankees still have their issues they got to work out. Again, they're good enough to win the division. They're good enough, certainly, to make the playoffs. I think they're good enough to get to the division series or the championship series. But as they stand today, if they do not get better at the positions I've already talked about, they're going to lose the Astros again in the playoffs. I talked about this, and again, I don't know. Listen, I'm not an Aaron Boone fan, Neil, but I don't think this was Aaron Boone's decision necessarily. They used him out of the bullpen last year, and I thought he was very effective. They did send him down to stretch him out when they started having some injuries, and that's hard to do. The kid needs to be a starter. I've been high on this kid for a while, and so I'm glad to see somebody else is on the same page as me, Neil, so thank you. Good to see you, Neil. I haven't seen you in a little bit, so good to have you. Check out the Drew and I's MLB preview. Sorry you weren't there to kind of comment as we went along, because I know you like to really promote Ohtani. Pitchers walking, tons of guys. How about Flaherty? Yeah, there you go. I didn't get the rest of your comment. I've got that note down here. Drew's the best because I can get to all my topics without even having to bring them up myself. Pitchers are walking lots of guys. Again, pitching in Major League Baseball is awful. Awful. And Rob Manfred over here will start talking about expansion. To where? How much are you going to dilute Major League pitching further than you have? Please. We should contract teams. We shouldn't be adding them. When you got teams as bad as Oakland, as bad as the Reds, Pittsburgh for years and years and years, I don't want to take teams out of Major League cities and hurt the fans, but you shouldn't be talking about expanding when baseball's as bad as it is today, especially pitching-wise. That's why is that a headline? The first story I see this morning, Flaherty no hits, Blue Jays, walk 7. Well, if I read that, I think he pitched a no-hitter. He didn't pitch a no-hitter. He pitched 5 innings. Stupid. Not a Flaherty fan, by the way. I think, and that's why one of the reasons I think the Cardinals will struggle this year, as we talked about on our preview show the other night. Please get out there and watch it. I'll keep shamelessly plugging it. Looks like Chuck Foreman notes. What are they doing there? Is I don't like their pitching. You guys wait, Cardinal fans, so you get a load of frickin' there's a stream of consciousness thing. I had a 50th anniversary to talk about. It wasn't a secretariat, though. Great call, though, Kenny. I got a story for this in a second. I'll come back in a minute. Let me finish this up. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. Again, to me, pitchers are whatever. Oh, and by the way, speaking of walks and strikeouts and whatever, another Rob Manfred said he's continuing, and we are probably trudging unstoppably towards automatic pitch calling, automatic strike balls and strikes. It's inevitable. And it's ridiculous. Why can't sports have a human element to it? Why can't officiating have a human element to it? Why? Players can fail right and left. Walk 7 guys. You failed. Pitch a no-hitter. You lose a game. You make an error. You failed. Why can't the game have umpires that do the same thing? There's tons of things that have happened in baseball that if it wasn't for blown calls by umpires, we'd never remember them. You remember Galarraga, I can't remember his first name, pitched for the Tigers a few years ago, and Jim Joyce, I think it was Jim Joyce. If it wasn't you, I apologize, Jim. Blew the call at first base. He would have had a perfect game. Well, can you name all the players that pitch perfect games in baseball? I can't. I can get a lot of them. I can't get him, and I probably would never come up with Galarraga 10 years later. But he's remembered more now because of the blown call. And I would also say that, like the 1985 World Series, Cardinals and Royals, a blown call by Don Deckinger at first base, the Cardinals win the series. He's out by 1.5 feet. But without that, it's just another World Series that we don't even remember it. I'm not saying I want bad calls to determine games right and left, but that's not happening, by the way. Just another World Series. If we have replay and it's overturned and they win, just another World Series. We're still talking about it today because of that blown call. Why can't that be part of what baseball is? Human element doesn't count in sports. Human element doesn't count in the world today. 50 here. This is, again, great stream of consciousness job here too, Kenny. I'm all for this. 50th anniversary. I agree with this comment wholeheartedly. If you remember, oh gosh, maybe it's 15 years ago. I don't know how long ago it was that ESPN did their 100 greatest athletes. I want to say Secretariat finished third. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure he was in the top 10. People were ripping that right and left, and I would say they're wrong. Secretariat is an athlete and one of the greatest athletes. Maybe not the best. Again, when it comes to, there's difference here. Best athletes, most important athletes. I've had this conversation with people before. I believe Babe Ruth and Muhammad Ali finished 1 and 2, and I think I like that. Babe Ruth was not just a great player, but Babe Ruth was the most important player in sports history, because without Babe Ruth, and I say this all the time, every single athlete today should get down on his knees and say a little thank you to Babe Ruth every night before he goes to bed, because sports wouldn't be what it is today. Players wouldn't be making the money they're making today without Babe Ruth. That's to take nothing away from Kenny's comment about Secretariat here. Great athlete. And also, by the way, since we're talking about it, and I'll move on to these comments here in a second, but this might elicit some more conversation. If it doesn't, that's fine too. Do I have this up here? Oh, I have. It's part of my comment. As you see here in my, come on, where are you? 50th anniversary of the DH, and maybe that's what prompted your comment. 50th anniversary coming up on April 6th, I want to say, of Ron Blomberg being the first, and I'm not a big fan of the DH, never was. Again, baseball is a lot about all your players being athletes, not just the ones that are hitters. But it's a momentous day in baseball history. He is the first DH in the history of the game in 1973, April 6th at Yankee Stadium. And I think a little known fact of this is the only reason, or one of the big reasons, that he needed to be in the starting lineup, by the way, for it to happen. But one of the big reasons is batting in front of him that inning, first inning, Greg Nettles works a walk, and if he didn't, most likely Ron Blomberg would not go down in history as the first DH ever. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. I had Ron Blomberg on for an interview a couple of years ago. What a great guy. We had so much fun that day. And he's just become a cottage industry of his own. Injury, actually, is an interesting Freudian slip, since injuries did derail his career quite a bit, and the inability to hit left-handers, which he disputes, by the way. But I wanted to get that out there. So let's see what other comments you have here. I'm behind a little bit, so we'll go through some comments. Is 44 still on today? Is number 44 still on today? He has a bobblehead and a body spins. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Chuck Foreman. He is. He had a little trouble getting on the StreamYard app on his computer, but he did on his phone, so we should be all set. I'm going to record that interview today, right after we do this show. Right after we wrap up this show at 10:30ish. I might finish a few minutes early. I'll be jumping over and doing that interview, and it will air Thursday night. So, yes, your man, Chuck Foreman. Oh, by the way, also, where's my U? Also, a graduate of Miami. So, yes, shit adds more teams. Add more teams. You'll still be able to pitch. You probably pitch now, Kenny. You're left-handed. I always said if I had kids, I would have taught them to be left-handed, because you can pitch in a major leagues till you're like 50. You don't have to be any good. Cronenworth signs a 7-year extension. Trenchworth locking up players for long term. I won't point out you missed the P, Drew. That's a little joke, because Drew does point out a lot of my malprops. I knew what you're talking about, too. But the trend, and again, I don't know if this is good or bad, right? Because here's the thing. If you're going to lock up guys and then they're not going to you don't give them opt-outs after 2 years, that's good. Give the team an opt-out. I do not think players should be able to have both the security of a long-term contract and the ability to get out of it when it's obsolete. But this is a good signing. I like Cronenworth a lot. I think he's a good player. They're certainly not paying him, any money. But I think that's a good move. Yeah, well, there you go. Listen, if I'm Brian Reynolds, I'm not signing a long-term contract with the Pirates. They got no clear plan to ever win. Or pay players. So why do I want to be there? Sorry, I'm switching back and forth between my coffee and my orange juice. So anyway, 50 years ago, Steinbrenner brought the Yankees for $10 million. It was actually during, it was 50 years ago, but it was probably during the winter of 72. And George, by the way, didn't even put $10 million of his own money up. The Yankees sold for $10 million. George was not even the majority partner in this endeavor. So the entire group, which Mike Burke, who was running the team for CBS, was still a part of, bought the Yankees for $10 million total. George put in a very small part of that. If I'm not mistaken, I've read rumors where George had less than, I've heard anything from $100,000 to $1 million invested in this team, a team that's now worth, I don't even know what the last valuation. It was just recently. It's over $7 billion. It might be considerably more than that now. So one of the better investments you can make was the one George Steinbrenner made, because he didn't even put up close to $10 million of his own money. That was what the whole group put up. And George was, by the way, it's well known that George said at the press conference that he was going back to Cleveland. I don't know anything about baseball. I'm a shipbuilder. I won't even be here. Well, the machinations were, and he was going to let Mike Burke still be the president. And Lee McPhail be the GM. And the machinations were already in place to bring in Gabe Paul from Cleveland. Not before Cleveland traded some really good players to the Yankees, by the way. Nothing suspicious about that. Trades a bunch of good players to the Yankees, and he leaves the Indians, goes to the Yankees as a president and GM, with Mike Burke not even knowing about it, and they push him out the door. Or he pushes himself out the door. And pretty soon George was running the entire show, him and Gabe Paul. So the absentee ownership lasted about, a month. Too many fast. You don't worry about typing. You're amongst a bunch of Perth graduates. The other thing, Rick, I really appreciate the comment the other day, Rick. Anytime I'm doing my interviews, I find a way to get a comment, just like I do here, commenting about Perth. Orange flavored coffee is oh God, yuck. Is that your daughter or one of the many senioritas? I don't know what picture he's talking about. Drew Perthus away of wearing. I have no idea what he's saying. Drew Perthus away of wearing on people. Perfect example of what I'm talking about. Good evening, CA, or good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever we are. Maybe vodka flavored, OJ. No, not this early. No drinking today. Maybe a little bit later. We got to go out and check out a few things. A couple up in Half Moon area. Might stop for a beer somewhere. We'll see how that goes. Perth is wearing off on people. Thank you, Drew. Jesus. Oh, my God. You spent way too much time in this group, Drew. Way too much time. Oh, what time we got here? 10:40. I want to get into let's see what else is going around at Major League Baseball before I jump out. The Anthony Rendon situation, I don't know what happened here. He wasn't very talkative Saturday. Video surfaced of the Angels players swiping at an Oakland fan following an opening day loss. And he's sorry. He can't comment. MLB's looking into the incident. There's a 12-second video posted to social media. Rendon grabbed the fan by the shirt through the guardrails and accuses the fan of calling him I'm going to guess, a bitch. Rendon continues to challenge the fan as he denies the claim. Rendon then calls the fan a mother effer and takes a swipe, which did not connect, as he lets go of the shirt and proceeds to leave the area. First couple of things here. Players cannot have these types of altercations with fans. You have to be able to walk away. On the flip side, as a fan, having that ticket, I don't care if it costs you $25 or $2,500. It does not give you the right to go there and do and say whatever you want to say. I've done full vlogs on this topic, and to me, it's indicative of our society today. We have a social contract with each other in this world to be. You don't have to be nice to everybody, but you should be respectable of everybody. I'm so tired of people cutting me off on the street, give me the finger. I don't know if it's carried over from the sports world. It's another thing. I talked about this somewhere else. I think it was when I told Asante Samuel to shut up in my vlog last week. I don't know whether sports is carried over to the real world or real world's carried over into sports. But we don't treat each other the way we should in general in daily life. Fans, you don't get the right to do what you want. You can't throw things at people. You can't call them racial epithets. You shouldn't even be calling them the B word. Because you're asking for a problem. And players, you need to be able to be thick-skinned enough to walk away. But fans cause these problems. There's zero doubt in my mind that Anthony Rendon went to the ballpark that day saying, I'm going to pick a guy out and I'm going to try to hit him. Which he did hit him. He'll probably be punished. But the fan caused this confrontation, not the player. But you got to be able to walk away. I'm just so tired of this. Lots of kidding about Perth, but no place else we'd... Absolutely. I joke about Perth a lot, but I would not give up my youth in Perth for anything in the world. Nothing. I'm glad you brought that up. So anyway, Anthony Rendon and the I talked a little bit about Urias on the IL with a hamstring strain. 2 months. How do players out with hamstrings for 2 months? If you tore it, I get it. It's a strained left hamstring. When did that become a 6 to 8 week freaking injury? So now they've got to find a way to fill that spot. He did hit .239 with 16 homers and 47 RBIs. As little offense as that seems, the Brewers can ill afford to give up any offense for sure. Going back, people in society as a whole think they can say whatever they want. Exactly. Well, you know what? Some of them have, though, Rick. That's the problem. And it is. People don't take, they think and part of it is, obviously there's a lot of it could be social media, right? Because you get used to just being able to say whatever you want and you're anonymous. Nobody can come and find you and punch you in the face, as you said. And I'm not condoning violence here, guys, not by any means. But again, when you incite that violence yourself, don't be, he'll be suing this guy for you're not wrong. It is heaven on earth living in Perth. Ricky Henderson started moon over Miami. Lou Piniella was the manager. I remember this, Neil. Moon over Miami. At least he's tried to play here and there and then went out again. Already, the guy's not even, I don't know. And again, it's about the injuries. Why do we have these injuries? I don't understand. Let's see. Padres extend Jake Cronenworth, as Drew said earlier, through the 2030 season. I wanted to see what kind of money. He'll make $4.2 million this year. I don't see the money in here for what he's going to get for his extension. I guess they have not announced. Oh, it's worth $80 million. That's pretty good money for Jake Cronenworth for sure. Players with double-figure ABs with nice starts. Rauschman, 6 for 10. Drew's done a little research this morning. Crone, who, we talked about, he's probably going to be one of those Coors Field products. Blackman, he won't continue. Blackman's career is, on the downside. Still a funny guy. I saw him interviewed yesterday afternoon. I think it was yesterday afternoon on the MLB Network. He's a funny guy. Springer, he and Kevin Millar were going back and forth. Springer, 5 for 11. Did Springer get hurt? No, I guess maybe he didn't. Garrett Cooper. It's funny, a lot of these guys we chatted about the other day, Garrett Cooper certainly won't keep that pace up. Alvarez, 4 for 11. Timmy Anderson, he'll get hurt, 6 for 13. Bogart's 5 for 10. Bryant 5 for 12, Bichette 5 for 10, Devers 5 for 10. Here's the problem though, this right? Such a small sample size. They go 0 for 20, and all of a sudden they're one of the worst hitters in baseball. But some of the guys that are off to good starts. Neil talking about he did drive. You know what, Neil? If probably Ricky was responsible for losing his job at least one time with the Yankees. Well, Drew, you've now got a standing reservation at the Gifford estate, and apparently not just for food. So enjoy yourself and make sure you get a ride home. Poor training staffs. Your only job is to keep players healthy. Work on bodily parts. Need to play baseball. This is one of the things I say a lot, Rick. I think the training that they do in the off season, maybe under no supervision, and then the training they get, a lot of the training they get during the season is not to prep them to play 162 games of baseball. Not enough training of the core, right? Not enough training of the lower body. You guys are all lifting weights. You don't need to lift weights to play baseball. Just take steroids. Just kidding. Our society is where it is because over 3 decades ago, we had an opportunity to change course but failed. Well, we've had many opportunities to change course and failed, but I don't disagree, CA. I get angry when I hear people talking about, misbehavior in sports and some of the attitudes in sports. I don't have to go to watch a ball game, a Major League Baseball game or professional sports game. I can go out anywhere. I go to the freaking grocery store and I can see the same kind of behavior. People who are self-absorbed, people who think the world revolves around them, people with no self-awareness, none. So anyway. Well, Kenny, they get hurt after one game. We're not talking about 162 games. We played one game. You think they'd be training different if it was 80? Listen, baseball's been 162 games since 1960. That's the way the game's played. It's a marathon. Why? Again, I can't agree with that any more than I can agree with any of the other rules changes, which I want to talk about quickly. Some of the repercussions that have happened this weekend. In fact, I want to get back to that. I can't agree with shortening the season any more than I can, making the bases bigger and changing the distance between the bases from 90 feet to 94, 85 and a half feet. That's ridiculous. Game's been 90 feet forever. Oh, I thought I saw something about some of the rules. I'm trying to come up with some of the things that have happened with the rules this weekend. These are all from a couple days ago. I know there was one unintended thing in Major League Baseball, or the umpire or somebody said they got this wrong, and it was with the Mets. They had a base runner. I don't remember who was on first base. Maybe Drew can help me out. And he wasn't getting back to the base fast enough. They called a strike on the pitcher. There's nowhere in the rules does it say a base runner who's delaying the game will cause a strike on the hitter. The clock starts. It's a stupid clock. We don't need it. I cannot believe the number of people who love this pitch clock. You like shorter games? I do too. I don't need to watch 4-hour games. I get it. But just enforce the rules that are there, all right? But the runner was slow getting back to the base, so the batter, whatever, the pitcher couldn't throw the pitch in time. They called a strike on the hitter. He was ready to hit. Pitcher should have just thrown the ball with the guy off the base, whatever. Anyway, Major League Baseball did admit that it was interpreted incorrectly and it won't happen again, they say. Pilates and yoga. So we talked about this the other day. There's another shameless plug for Ellen Ehrlich to be able to, she does train people in both of these workouts. Kenny's mom rescued him when he went into the stands after a heckler in a basketball game. Hard to believe, Rick. Rick did have a bit of a, again, the fire in Rick is what made Rick a better ball player, whether it was basketball or football, from my recollection, right? Myself, far from the most talented guy on a baseball field, but I played hard every second, and I worked to get better. I didn't have the natural talent some of my classmates had. I worked to get better. It was that drive. I never wanted to go after somebody. Although I did get myself in a fight, and Kenny might have been there when I got in a fight, almost a fight, not a fight, but we were playing a game in the men's night league, fast pitch softball in Amsterdam, and we had an instance where somebody was going to throw at one of our players because he was getting a little mouthy, and I heard it. And I went right over and got in somebody's face that I know on that team, knew on that team. This is a lot of years ago. Tell them what bullshit this was. And, I had a little fire of my own. And that's what drove me. I wanted to be better. I was terrible when I was a kid. Terrible. Played for a long time on desire. This conversation about saying things is because parents have stopped doing the job. I don't disagree. I agree 100%, Kenny. Parents don't parent anymore. They expect teachers to do it. They expect coaches to do it. But when you spare the rod, spoil the child. You'll get in trouble for that too. I'm sorry. The one really true idiom that I say a lot is uncoachable kids become unemployable adults. And they're uncoachable kids because parents have already turned them over as freaking prima donnas. Anyway, we get off that topic. I thought there was some other thing I wanted to bring up with the rules, but we'll have plenty of times to talk about things that have implemented the rules. Let's get into a little bit of NFL here. I wanted to talk about some of the things going on as the annual meetings have started. So there's some updates to, what's going on with whatever. Aaron Rodgers. Not much movement there. The Packers have said they're no longer interested. Let me change my banner here. Can I keep going down to? There we go. The Packers have said they've dropped dropped holding out for the 13 pick the Jets have in this year's draft. Unrealistic to think the Jets were ever going to give it up. I've said a lot of times that the Packers seem to think they're dealing from a position of strength here, and they are not. Jets hold all the cards, and Aaron Rodgers holds all the cards. What are the Packers going to do? Nobody else wants him. Nobody else is willing to trade for him. They owe him $50+ million. He's not going to retire. They can't bring him back. So they either have to trade him, get what they can, get rid of his payroll, and he still has a cap hit on the team if they trade him, I believe. Or they can cut him and they got to pay him the money, and the Jets are happy because they can sign him for a song. This is going to get done in the next couple weeks. And again, not being a Jet fan and not being an Aaron Rodgers fan, this whole thing, the Jets are ready to win today with a quarterback. They aren't ready to win with the quarterbacks they have, and there is no plan B. Plan B is signed in Las Vegas. Plan B is signed in New Orleans. Lamar Jackson is not coming here. They have no choice because their windows can be very short. Unless you're the Chiefs, Patriots are an aberration. The window for you to succeed is short and can close quickly. The Jets' defense is playoff caliber and maybe more now. They're skill position players. Assuming Hall comes back, I think they'll draft a running back somewhere in the draft, not early, but later on for some depth. Is playoff caliber now. This team is ready to compete and win and maybe go deep into playoffs with a quarterback. There's zero downside here. I mean, it could implode. I'm not telling you that Aaron Rodgers will come here because the drama he brings with him, living in Green Bay with drama is bad enough. Living in New York City is even worse. But to me, if I was a Jet fan, I'm willing to take the gamble. What do you got to lose? You're not going to do anything without a quarterback, and they don't have one. So they have very little choice except to make a run here. What do we got here? We'll catch up on some of these. Rick can attest to desire all Perth athletes in the Tri-Valley. Tri-Valley League was a very physical league in a lot. Even in baseball, it was a physical sport. So I agree with that, Kenny. Birth control for boys as well as girls was and is the answer, more specifically administrated to those who abuse freedoms of. I'm wondering if you're talking about retroactive abortions here. Sorry. I'll get in trouble for that too. Whatever. I know some people that would be the poster child for retroactive abortions. More rules about the helmet and where you can hit. Yeah, that's coming out of the meetings. The part I like is they are now watching the offensive player when they lower head. Very good point. I mean, there's too often you can't hit with the crown of the helmet. We know that, right? But too often you're trying to hit a moving target. He's liable to move right into the crown of your helmet. Now, there are plenty of plays where a player's obviously launching himself like a missile or lowering his head to apply a blow. But there are plenty of times, too, where it's going to be a shoulder tackle and the offensive player turns it in, not purposely, just by the momentum, right? So, yes, I think they need to look at that harder. And I think college football needs to look at the flagrant foul. What do they call that? Gosh, it's skipping my mind now. Targeting. The targeting call a little bit closer too, because some of these are very, very borderline where we're tossing guys out of the game. I want to get rid of that part of football, but you got to be careful because you can't legislate the violence out of football for lack of injury's sake, protecting players against injury. You can't. You just can't do it. You can make it safer, but the violence, people like the violence. I'm sorry. If you don't think so, you're just not paying attention. Soap opera around Rodgers, what are the odds? Good point, Drew. He's coming here. He's coming to New York. If you're a Jet fan, listen, as a Patriot fan, I'd rather he didn't come to New York because the Jets have the potential to be a very, very, very good team with Aaron Rodgers on this roster. It's a very talented roster. The defense is championship caliber right now in my mind. And that defense, or that I think that division is volatile enough the Jets could catapult right to the top if the Aaron Rodgers experiment works out. And if it doesn't work out, you're no worse off than you were because you're not going to win without him. You're not going to win with another quarterback on the roster. Who else are you bringing in here? Teddy Bridgewater? Are you winning a Super Bowl with Teddy Bridgewater? No. So you bring Aaron Rodgers in here for a year, 2 years. I think he's got 2 years. It's going to be a 2-year contract probably. And hopefully that window and things work out and they win. If that doesn't, you're no worse off than you were because you weren't going to win anyway. And I say this not being an Aaron Rodgers fan at any way, shape, or form. But he can play the position. We'll see how well he can lead this team. One of the smallest schools with great coaches. We had great coaches for sure. Coaches had a chip on their shoulder. We all had chips on our shoulder. It was a lot of fun, man. We had a lot of fun. Rodgers goes to New York. Welcome to the hoods. Excellent call, Rick, on some of the Perth stuff. We talked a lot of Perth a lot today. Sorry for you guys that aren't Perth. We like to talk about our upbringing and look at it. Most of us became decent human beings. Real evolution. I really got CA on the these topics lately. Then one day humanity's use of birth control outside the mind would become very rare. Interesting. Not my number one sports topic today, CA, but interesting thoughts. I'm not laughing at your opinions. I'm just laughing at my. This show has literally become a stream of consciousness, and I like it. It's fine. Greg Roman, offensive coordinator, takes a break from coaching. Fallout from Jackson drama, maybe. Lamar Jackson has been doing a lot of tweeting lately, caused problems with my team. I did a vlog the other day because Asante Samuel, Lamar had tweeted some stuff, and part of it was about the Patriots and potentially, places he'd like to play. And Asante Samuel basically got on there and ripped Bill Belichick and ripped the Patriots. And I did a vlog on this the other day, so check it out. I won't go into it too long, but I'll give you the gist of it. He said it's a horrible place to play because when they lose, they're all down and downtrodden. And when they win, everything's good when you win. But if you win, sometimes the coach will still point out things you did wrong. Listen, Asante Samuel, I think the coaching staff in New England, including Bill Belichick, did a pretty good job making you a better player than you were when you got there. You won 2 Super Bowls. You ended up getting a big free agent contract because of that improvement. And God forbid that you want to go to a team, and I don't think you won with the Eagles, so maybe there, after losses, they went out and had ice cream and maybe gave you a participation trophy for being at the game. And I said, shut up, Asante Samuel, because you know nothing about, something about the culture. There are always disgruntled players that speak up about the Patriots. But there's more guys who are calling up and saying, I appreciate what was done for me, and those players pushed me. And again, going back to what we were talking about, my upbringing. Without coaches that were pushing me, I would have never got any better. If they just patted me in the back and let me go out there and continue to stink, I would have never got any better. But God forbid we should not care about losing or not care about winning or care about whatever. Asante Samuel, basically shut up. Guys, please go check out my vlog. It's only about 10 minutes long. And I'm much more worked up probably than I was here. But did Greg Roman leave because of it? Maybe. We've seen a few coaches do this, though. Leslie Frazier's taken a sabbatical. It's not retired that I'm aware of with the Bills, but is taking a sabbatical. So, I don't know. Maybe. What else is going on? Speaking of Lamar Jackson, this is becoming an Aaron Rodgers situation. How does he go back to training camp now? By the way, he's not going to the Patriots. They're not giving up the capital, and they're not paying him. So, he's got no choice. They franchised him. What is he going to do? He's got to go to camp. But how do you go back and how do you lead the team when you're in the middle of this type of dispute? Maybe there's a trade to be made. I don't know. Maybe it happens on draft day. Be interesting to see what Baltimore does in the draft with the quarterback position. Speaking of the Patriots, Bill Belichick, listen, everybody in the Patriot organization is still high on Mac Jones. Bill Belichick has made it pretty clear there's going to be an open competition between him and Bailey Zappi in training camp, which is fine. I was asked this morning on the Mac and Jack show, do I think that hurts Mac Jones? No, I think it helps him. And I think that's exactly what Belichick is doing. Bill O'Brien is really high on Mac Jones. All the coaches are really high on Mac Jones with his intelligence factor, his attitude towards the game. The fact that he got upset last year isn't a derogatory thing. It's a good thing. And they all love him, and everybody speaks glowingly of him still, except one guy, and that's Bill Belichick. And he wants to motivate the kid. And do I think it'll hurt him? No, because I think his makeup is one, and there are players that it would hurt. I think it will help him. I think he'll grow. So Lamar Jackson, here's the whole thing. Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns, and I should blame the Browns more than the rapist. Said his name. I said I'd never say his name on his show. Sorry. They're the ones that blew this whole quarterback market to smithereens with the contract he signed with Cleveland. And if Lamar Jackson doesn't want to play for one of the most consistent, well-run organizations and a really good football coach, just because he wants as much money as he can maximize, then I don't want him on my team either. Get out of town. Just got to find somebody to pick him. What's the latest on the 10-16? We still got time. We'll probably be wrapping it up soon. What's the latest on the number one pick front? As we know, the Panthers have traded for that pick. Rumors have been they'll go for C.J. Stroud. But they've been in the process of considering each of the top 4 prospects. One of them I don't understand at all. Stroud, Young, Will Levis, you can put in any order you want. I still think Levis is the most ready to play now. But Anthony Richardson from Florida, how are people mentioning him in a top 5, top 10? I don't even see him in the first round. What has this kid done except display great athletic ability, which doesn't necessarily relate into great quarterback ability? Very limited success at Florida. Played very little. And he's going to be a top 5 pick, a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. You talk about a reach. And I'm afraid the team that does make that reach is going to be in for a big mistake. I don't. He might start, though, Drew. I mean, if they take Stroud, to me, Bryce Young might be able to play immediately. Will Levis might be able to play immediately, although he didn't light it up. Everybody knows how much I like Will Levis. He didn't light it up in his pro day, but he had his moments. C.J. Stroud, I don't think is ready to play today. So they probably would have to play Andy Dalton. Well, Levis is dropping. I did see. You're right. Some team's going to get a bargain. And if he falls out of the first round, teams are making a huge mistake. This kid's going to be a really good NFL quarterback. And if a bad pro day workout, drops him out of the first round, who knows, out of the top 10, out of the top 20, out of the first round, it's happened before. Some team is going to really make out very well when Will Levis falls to them. Many talking heads continue to talk about Leslie Frazier being a head coach. No, I don't. Look, there's guys who are great coaches or great coordinators, and Leslie Frazier's one of them. And there are guys who are just don't make it as coaches. Leslie Frazier's one of them. Josh McDaniel might be another one. Charlie Weiss was one. I mean, there's Frank Reich might be one. We'll see. There's a lot of examples of this through the year. Romeo Crennel. Just because you're a great coordinator doesn't make you a great head coach. Just like if you're a great salesperson doesn't mean you can be a great sales manager. Big difference. A great point, Rick. Great point. Just giving you the answer to drastically reducing your expanding problems from irresponsible. Well, no, that's fine. You can, like I said, this has turned into I titled this "The Stream of Consciousness" so we could kind of go off on different topics. And listen, that's probably a little deep for this part of this. Well, maybe not. Actually, I'd be doing a disservice. I said it was too deep for this audience. But your thoughts are very well thought out, CA, and your opinions certainly are not that far off of mine in a lot of ways. I know you weren't calling for retroactive abortion, by the way. That was a joke on my part. Nice article on how quarterbacks have changed teams will perform. We'll check that out. Maybe we'll look at it next week. We can talk about it real quickly. I mean, who's going to have the most impact? Listen, I think Jimmy G could have a great impact in Vegas. I'm not a huge fan, but he's worked with Josh McDaniel before. He knows the system. He's got some really good weapons to throw to. One of the best wide receivers in football, in Adams. It's possible that team makes a huge leap. I think less of Derek Carr, let's say, making that type of leap with the Saints. He might have been better off with the Jets. But I'm not a big fan of Derek Carr. I don't think Derek Carr's taking the Jets or anybody else or the Saints. He'll take you to the playoffs potentially. He's good enough to do that. But he's a guy who comes up small every time. You saw it against the Bengals 2 years ago. They could have and should have won that game, and they didn't. And a lot of it was because Derek Carr, when he needed to, didn't even throw the ball into the end zone. He's just not a smart player. Got talent. A lot of talk about the Rams. Are they on? There was some talk a while back. I haven't heard in a while that plan B now for the Jets would be Matthew Stafford if the Rodgers thing somehow fell through. That the Rams were 100% sold on a rebuild. I mean, it was talk that McVay was going to walk away. He hasn't done that, but we'll see what happens. What else is out there? Odell Beckham. Multiple offers on the table, which I've been hearing since about last October. There's something up here. Either this guy doesn't want to sign with anybody, or people don't want him. The Jets are the most likely landing spot for him because that's what they need if they bring in Aaron Rodgers is another potential headache. Oh, something's going on in my printer or not. My wife could be printing something. And Baltimore's also made a push for Beckham as well, trying to get Lamar Jackson the weapons he really wants. We're going to wrap this up in a minute, but let me see what else I want to chat about quickly. Hopkins is still out there. The Bills have been a topic of conversation. Bill O'Brien and New England have been a topic of conversation. Bill O'Brien would be an impediment to him landing in New England because of their previous relationship. But I think if the sides wanted him there, I don't think the Patriots are going to pay him. But if he wanted to land there, I'm sure that they could work it out. Bill O'Brien was a head guy. Now he's a coordinator. Much different relationship. Todd Bowles has said that Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask will be in a full-fledged competition for the job. The general manager there has said that they were comfortable with Kyle Trask being the starter there last year if Tom Brady had not come back. So that's a bit interesting. And then it kind of goes on from there. So I was going to get into a little bit of NBA, but we aren't going to do that. I want to answer the rest of your questions, and we're going to get ready to wrap it up here. Brissett on the Commanders listen, these are questionable signings for sure. Depth. I think Sam Howell's probably going to get the shot in Washington. Brissett's a good guy to have on the team as a backup. Can help you for a game or two. When you have to play multiple games with Jacoby Brissett, it doesn't work out. We saw that with the Colts. We saw that with the Browns last year. He's a good guy to have on the team. Minshew, listen, he is a placeholder, and I don't think he's going to end up being a star. Listen, can you really see Gardner Minshew playing 16 games or 17 games next year? I think he's another guy that in short spurts in the right place can play well and have productive games. But, playing him 17 games in a row, all of his deficiencies come up. Mike White, well, with Tua, and this is a good landing spot for White. Good point. Mike White's got a problem staying healthy, don't forget, though, too. And Mike White might turn this into another opportunity, maybe even Miami, if Tua's injury, head injuries continue, or any injuries continue, I guess. He either turns it into an opportunity there or an opportunity somewhere else to be a bridge quarterback. But he's got to prove he can stay healthy. He hasn't exactly, been the Rock of Gibraltar out there. Jets should get... I think this is a good place to wrap it up today because I do got to get ready for the Chuck Foreman. Now I'm trying to get George Foreman too, by the way. I think it's a good place to wrap it up. And if we bring in Kyrie Irving to the Jets, you bring in Rodgers, sorry about that. You bring in Rodgers, you bring in Beckham, and bring in Kyrie. I don't know what his job would be, but it really doesn't matter. You'd have a triumvirate of jerks and cancers on your team. So my music will start up again, and then we'll wrap it up. So, guys, I've had a great time today. You guys, as always, have done a tremendous job because my job is so easy on Sunday mornings especially because you guys are my co-hosts, and you help me tremendously keep this show rolling, and I hope you continue to do so. Thanks, Rick, for the luck with Chuck Foreman. I'm sure it's going to be good. We talked on the phone the other day. Seems like a really good guy. I'm sure we'll have some fun. We'll talk about that, too. I think it's possible Henneke gets that starting job there, Anthony. Welcome to the show. Sorry you came in so late, but we'll talk about that more next week. This is one place we don't agree, CA, but we'll certainly be diving into that topic as we go, too. Thanks, Drew, for your participation. Thanks for everybody. Italy, Alex, some of our new people. I'm trying to remember who else signed in here. I'm going back to the notes a little bit. Carlos was here for a bit. Tanner was with us for a bit today. Matthew was the new guy I wanted to say hi to. Please like and share the show. Invite your friends. We'll see you next week with the stream of consciousness. We'll see you Wednesday night. Our last, well, not our last, but our college sports huddle, which will be the last one during on college basketball, other than signings and coaching movement, things like that. So we'll see you then, and we'll have Chuck Foreman next Thursday night. Also watching that Robinson interview from last week. See you later, guys. Have a great Sunday.